there are any of you out there that are here for item D2, that item is going to be continued to the future City Council agenda. This was on...
It will be continued to November 18th.
Till November the 18th.
And there will be 2 community meetings held November 8th and November 10th to discuss these. This is the Fire and Resource Assessment Program, and so it will be heard again before Council November 18th. However, we will have 2 more community meetings. Those will be November 8th, which is a Saturday, and November 10th, which is a Monday, and those will be in the council chambers. And the time of those meetings, I apologize. Mr. Johnson, what time will those meetings be held on the 8th and the 10th? Saturday, November 8th, from 10 to 12 in the council chambers, and on Monday, November 10th, will be held from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. It was item D2, and it will be removed from this agenda and heard on November 18th before the City Council. I read that. Yeah. D2 was the Fire and Resource Assessment Program.
Okay, again, that's item D2 is not going to be heard tonight, so if you're here for that item, please, and that's the only item you're here for, then please feel free to leave if you so desire. Okay, we're going to call this council meeting to order. We'd like to welcome you to the Vista City Council. This is also a Community Development Commission meeting, as well as a Buena Sanitation District meeting. And there are items on the agenda that address those other areas in which we have responsibility for. We'll begin by having a roll call.
The record will reflect that all members are present.
Okay, we're all here. Now, we're very pleased tonight to have PAC 751, the Webelow Scouts, Webelow Scouts Den, and I believe it's called the Bolts. And they'll conduct a flag ceremony. And Webelow's Den leader, Tony Visco, will then give us the invocation. So we'll turn it over to you. Okay, hold that microphone up real close.
Color Guard advance. Color Guard halt. Cub Scout salute. Prepare to post the colors. Post the colors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. 2. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2.
Mayor Vance, council members, on behalf of the Weebles Bolts of PAC 751, I would like to thank you all for allowing us to come here tonight and allowing us to participate in the flag ceremony. Thank you very much. I would also like to, at this time, congratulate my young scouts for the great job they just did. They represent a reflection of the true meaning of good citizenship in the future of our country. I would also like to thank all the city officials and all the community service members for their duty of service, for our protection, and for keeping us all safe. In the upcoming week, as we go to the polls free and willing, and as we elect a new leader as president of our great country, may we wish upon him that he possesses the leadership skills to keep our country safe and lead us out of this time of economic hardship. Let us all pray for the safety of all the men and women, your sons and daughters, who are in the military and who risk their lives each and every day, both here and abroad, so that we may continue to live in a country with freedom and independence for all. May God bless you all. Amen.
Thank you very much.
Now, normally, the colors will now remain posted until the end of this meeting. However, since we will not be staying for the entire meeting here tonight, we will now perform the retrieval of the color ceremony.
Thank you.
Cub Scout salute. Color Guard retrieve the colors. Color Guard about face. Color Guard retreat. Two.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before all those young men get away, I want to make sure that I get a response from every one of them. Now, you're all going to become Eagle Scouts, right? All right, that's very good. I'm going up next Sunday. My oldest grandson is receiving his Eagle Scout award next Sunday. So that's a worthy a goal and a worthy ambition. So I really pray that you'll all strive hard to become Eagle Scouts. Thank you for having us here. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. Okay, next we have the approval of the agenda. Are there any items to be added or deleted other than D2?
No, Mayor. D2 is the only removal and no additional items to the agenda.
Okay, we did have a closed session before we started the council meeting this evening, and I'll ask the city attorney to give a report on the closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the council did meet in closed session on the real estate item listed on this evening's closed session agenda as CS1. No action was taken that is required to be disclosed at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have two presentations that we'd like to make tonight, and if I might go down to the podium and ask Chief Fisher to come up first of all, our fire chief. He's hiding back there in the foyer. Now, do you want me to read this prior to the time you tell us what a shakeout is, or do you want to tell us what a shakeout is first?
I can do it either way, however
Why
you
don't
like.
you tell us what a shakeout is first, and then maybe this will have more meaning as I read it then.
All right.
Okay.
November 13th is the Great Southern California Shakeout, and it's essentially what it is. It's a drill, an earthquake drill, that's being held across the state and focusing in Southern California because we don't have a lot of earthquakes down here in San Diego County. If you're an individual, you can go to readysandiego.org, and it'll give you a list of things that you can do in terms of practicing escape plans and emergency responses for evacuations. And if you're a company, it will give you drills that you can conduct with your employees and get them up to speed in case we do have an earthquake here in San Diego. And on the 13th, the city will be hosting a fairly large drill, and where we'll be practicing our emergency response procedures and getting ready for any kind of earthquake emergency that might arise. So it's a statewide drill, and we're going to be very busy with it here in San Diego County and the City of Vista.
With that, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation that we've prepared. It says, whereas with 22 million people living and working in Southern California, a major earthquake in the region could cause an unprecedented catastrophe. What we do now before the big earthquake will determine what our lives will be like after. And whereas the earthquake an inevitable part of Southern California's future, Californians must act quickly to ensure that disasters do not become catastrophes. And whereas with this in mind, the Earthquake County Alliance has organized the Great Southern California Shakeout, a week of special events featuring a shakeout earthquake drill event at 10 a.m. on November 13th, 2008. And whereas with a goal of at least 5 million participants, the shakeout drill will be the largest in U.S. history. And whereas registered participants will receive information on how to plan their drill, connect with other participants, and encourage a dialogue with others about earthquake preparedness. And whereas this event is part of a week of special events featuring the largest earthquake drill in United States history, and organized to inspire Southern Californians to get ready for big earthquakes and to prevent disasters from becoming catastrophes. What we do now before a big earthquake will determine what our lives will be like after. And now, therefore, the mayor and members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim Thursday, November 13th, 2008, as the Great Southern California Shakeout in the city of Vista. And it's signed by all the members of the City Council. So if I might present that to you, Chief, and have a happy shakeout.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. The next is a proclamation is commemorating National American Indian Heritage Month. And we have representatives from the San Luis Rey Band of Mission Indians. If they'd like to come forward, if I might read their names, Russell Romo is the captain, Carmen Mojado is the secretary, Charlotte Herrera, the treasurer, Mel Vernon, Mary Lou Beltran, Albert Sarah, and Henry Serra Jr., and Henry Contreras, and Tom Beltran. Okay. Let me go ahead and read this, and I'll give you an opportunity to say a little bit about it. In fact, why don't I go ahead and I'll present this to you now, and I've got a copy here that I can read, and you can follow along there. Okay, it says, whereas formal American Indian heritage recognition began in 1915 when Arthur C. Parker, a Seneca Indian, persuaded the Boy Scouts of America to recognize the first Americans with their own day. And whereas in 1990, President George H.W. Bush issued a proclamation declaring November to be National American Indian Heritage Month. And whereas on October the 8th, 2008, President Bush signed into law legislation to designate the Friday after Thanksgiving as Native American Heritage Day. The Native American Heritage Bill is supported by the National Indian Gaming Association and 184 federally recognized tribes and designates Friday, November 28, 2008, as a day to pay tribute to Native Americans for their many contributions to the United States. And whereas Native Americans have inhabited America for over 10,000 years, in northern San Diego County, a majority of the 918 enrolled members live on their 12,273-acre reservation established for Cupeno and Luiseño Indians. And whereas American Indian society is incredibly diverse, the American Indian continues to make a vital contribution throughout the city and throughout San Diego County. Now, therefore, the mayor and members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim the month of November 2008 as National American Indian Heritage Month, and Friday, November 28, 2008, as Native American Day in the city of Vista. So, thank you very much. And
I thank you.
here, if you'd like to say a few words.
Okay, I thank you, City Council people, recognizing us, and I appreciate the help that you give us, Indian Rock. I gave you a brochure a book up there for all you council members to look at. With the help of the University of San Diego, San Marcos, we all got together and did this, and I hope in the future we'll have it open for the public, but yet we're still working on it. Takes a little time since we're not a federal recognized tribe. We don't have no casinos, so it's all volunteers. And volunteer is pretty hard, but I thank you and I appreciate all the time and the gratitude of all the work you guys helped us with. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you so much.
And I thank you. Thanks.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the oral communications. This is an opportunity for those in the audience who wish to speak on any item that's not on the agenda. They have 3 minutes in which they can speak. And so the first individual will be Al Varick.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty good tonight, so I thought I'd come over. You know, I happened to be reading the paper of things going on, and this is about these checkpoints. And I can't believe how successful they are, especially in Escondido and Oceanside. Now, with these checkpoints, though, it looks like Escondido is losing population. And I hope to God that population's not moving here to Vista. And I mean that sincerely. We don't need them. You know, those checkpoints are taking out all the drunk drivers. And you know yourself, it's a backdoor way of getting the illegals too. It's just a way of doing it, but it works. And I just think that Vista should get more involved with this, because I just don't want to see it. My neighborhood is so bad. You can't even walk the streets at night now. And you should hear some of the names I'm called. You know, one apartment owner said, you Whitey, get the F out of here. I don't want you around here. And Sunday morning, 3 wrecked cars on Monty Mar. Nobody will come forward. 2 of them are still wrecked there. Some drunk driver hit them. They took off. Sheriff said, nobody will come forward. But anyway, you know, I wish you'd take an example from Escondido. They've got some people over there that's willing to put their job on the line and stick their necks out to do what's right. I hope you understand what I'm saying, because we're not doing it here in Vista. And I don't want this to be a sanctuary city. This nut up in San Francisco, that's bad enough to watch him. But anyway, I hope it don't come to that.
Mr.
Thank you.
Varick, actually, we are doing it here in Vista. We do have checkpoints here, and we've had several at various locations within the city. Some, most that I've gone through, have been up on East Vista Way. There have been others that have been located throughout the community. So yes, the city of Vista is doing that, and we've caught a lot of drunk drivers. We've caught a lot of people who do not have licenses and registered vehicles and other things, other warrants, that we've kept some towing businesses rather handily employed during those times. So yes, we are doing it.
Well, I hope you keep it up, because I don't see the statistics for Vista. I've seen Escondido, and it's just unbelievable.
Well,
So,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next is policewatch.org. Mr. Org?
I couldn't disagree more with the checkpoints. Of course, it's legal. Supreme Court has given it the green light for stopping people for zero reason. But see, the difference between this country and many other countries is that you have to have a thing called probable cause. I mean, some real factual reason that you can put together in your mind that that person is committing some kind of crime, like, for instance, zigzagging or not putting their light on ever or cutting people off or something like that. But now we have a society whereby we just have these checkpoints, which they have in all kinds of tyrannical countries, where they just stop people and start in grilling you and browbeating you and making up excuses to search your car. See, that's the difference between a police state and a not police state. We need some kind of real suspicion. But since most people in this country, and I'm never the one to not say what I think, are incredible cowards for not standing up for basic human rights and civil rights, that's why we're getting more and more of this through law. This is case law I've been reading all day. Most courts side on police, so you can forget about fighting police on almost any issue. Okay? So that's really not what I had to talk about, but checkpoints are rubbish. If they're driving in a drunk way or in some way that is real suspicion of a problem, you stop them. But this garbage is stopping everybody is despicable. Okay? So hopefully Obama will be president and a lot of this nonsense will at least be confronted, if nothing else, if not changed. Because Bush has been the worst president ever for civil and human rights, okay? The Proposition 8 thing I wanted to bring in here. It's so funny how people are out on the street and flashing their signs and they can't jump up and down enough to stop another person from having the same basic human rights as they have, marriage. Marriage is a basic fundamental right, but since those two people have penises and not a penis and a vagina, then it's
That's
no
enough.
good.
That's
No,
enough.
that's First Amendment speech,
I don't care
sir.
if it's First
That
Amendment
is
speech or
First
not. That's
Amendment
enough here.
speech. Would you like to be sued? Okay? So
Bring it on.
it's just, you need to add some time to my allotment.
No, I
so
don't.
basically, Mr. Mayor, the fact is, we live in a dreamland about other people. Rights for us is okay, and they're fundamental, and they're necessary, and they're human. But when they're for other people, we couldn't give a damn,
Your
is
time
what I'm
is up.
saying.
Your time is up.
Thank you. And if you do it again, I will sue the city.
We'll
Thank
have
you.
Letty Linhart. Just pull it down close to you, that's good.
Like this. Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of the council, distinguished city manager, staff, I'm tickled to be here because, for one thing, I was treated by the city manager and the staff as a very important person, when in fact I'm a restaurant reviewer for the Vista News. In other days, I have...
We're happy to have someone here that's happy to be here.
I'm very happy to be here. In other days, I have been considerably more important than a restaurant reviewer for the Vista News, and in that capacity, I have butted heads with lots of councils and lots of city managers and lots of city governments. I've seen something that I want to call to your attention. It's called Unintended Consequences. It started when Bob Wayne had to go out of business because Boney's left and his clientele was diminished, and he had a sign that said used books. And he was not able to leave it out there. To make a long story short, the business went out of existence, and it's a shame. We had little old professors and teachers who were making $200 and $300 a month coming in there and buying books, wonderful books, for $1 and $2, and they have no place to go. I see the same thing happening with the local restaurant. I wrote to one of your council members and told her all about, gee, that kind of narrows it down, doesn't it? Told her about this remarkable immigrant family who has done the floors, mortgaged their homes. Am I out of time?
Oh, you still got a minute.
Oh, okay. Cashed in their 401ks. They have been extraordinary. They have created an extraordinary restaurant. I think it's the best in town, and I've been to all of them. And it's named Dell's, and it's on East Vista Way. They did not understand when they rented a piano and got a pianist that they were not covered to do that. Now, I think maybe after reading the statutes and calling the ABC and everything, maybe they are covered to do that. But I'm no legal expert, and all I can tell you is they've planned holiday parties. They deserve to continue in business, and they cannot unless their piano and their piano player I'm not threatening you. I mean, they showed me the figures. They have to clear $7,000 a week, and they're not doing it. We loaned them the money to pay their excise tax. So we feel strongly this is a jewel in Vista's crown and should not go the way of I Love Books. And whatever that takes, whether it's a variance from the statute, we love your restaurant too, Frank. But whatever that takes in the form of a variance and ordinance, they simply can't wait till January to have a license. Now, they don't want a cabaret license. They're not going to serve booze. They're not going to have a happy hour. They're not going to do any of that stuff. All they want's a piano.
Ma'am, your time is up.
Okay, I'll stop. Anyway, thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is Alejandro Sanchez.
Buenas tardes, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. My name is Alejandro Sanchez. I live on 515 North Citrus, right in the heart of Townside. Tonight, I wanted to share with you my experiences that I have in all over in Vista as a Barack Obama supporter, that I am proudly announce you that it's been so awesome to see so many people sharing stories about, what they're doing for these elections and how they're getting involved, and seeing a lot of kids very enthusiastic about change. And it's about time. It's about time to get rid of all these Republicans and finally, get Obama as President of the United States. Indeed, we have a lot of problems, big problems. I've seen it, especially in my neighborhood. Most of them, we are poor families, and I have honorably representing Hispanics for many years, and I still will continue to do so. I'm so proud and very enthusiastic that finally we're going to have a president that really do care for the poor people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Next, that concludes our oral communications. The next item on the agenda is to, I think, do we have a lot of students here from Rancho Buena Vista School back there in the back? Oh, in the front too. Well, welcome to City Council meeting tonight. We really enjoy having you come and share your time with us, and we hope that someday that you'll be up here participating instead of sitting out there in the audience. Okay, next on the agenda is our consent calendar. I have one request to remove C6. Are there any other items to be removed from the, Mr. Gronke?
Yes, I'd like to pull C11.
C11, okay. Are there any other items to be pulled? Do we have a motion to?
Mayor, I'd move for adoption of the balance of the consent calendar.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second it, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, and the rest of the consent calendar is adopted unanimously. The first item to be pulled is item C6. We have a gentleman from the audience that wishes to speak to that. Do you wish to hear him first, or do you wish to report? Okay, Mr. Sanchez, would you like to come back up? Alejandro Sanchez? We move right along.
Once again, my name is Alejandro Sanchez, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I was looking at just and again about this property, and I got a lot of questions. I do not know, still cannot figure out why did the city get so interested in this property and bought it for hundreds of thousands of dollars when indeed we're having very difficult times right now. Economically, we're in a big chaos, and now you guys started buying properties. What is the purpose to buy this property when, there is a lot of things that I think, in my opinion, there has to be some other priorities. but not buying houses right now. I don't think it's the right time for the city. I do understand that you have so many employees, working only 4 days a week, making so much money and not working not even weekends, not even on Fridays, and getting overtime and everything. And it seems like they're very happy with it. But I'm not happy when you're spending taxpayers' money for the sole purpose of a house. I think you should reconsider, to keep spending taxpayers' money in things that they're not necessarily right now. Thank you.
Mr. Pierce, would you like to tell us why we're buying this house, or tell the people why we're buying this house? Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. You're done.
Larry Pierce, Director of Engineering, and I have with me Bill Jardine, our right-of-way agent. The reason we're buying this piece of property is it's one of 67 pieces of property along West Vista Way from Emerald to Thunder that is a future project called West Vista Way widening. This piece of property became on the market, and because it was one of the pieces of property that we were going to have to purchase, or a good portion of it anyway, it was a good time to buy it right now at the time that it was available. We will be continuing to buy property along this right-of-way as we buy right-of-way for the widening project.
And where does the funding source come from?
Funding source is from the project. The project. We do have $1 million, over $1 million in the project right now for the specific purpose of buying right-of-way.
Can that money be used for anything else?
No, it cannot be.
Okay, so this is to build, or to provide for the widening of West Vista Way.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Does council have any comments or questions? Is there a motion? Okay, Mr. Campbell.
I believe there's residual value in this land in and of what you'll need for the widening, and I believe it's potentially that we could find some return on investment on this. Is that not true?
That's correct.
Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not just money out?
No.
Totally. No. Okay, thank you.
Okay, now is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, and that passes unanimously. Very good. The next item to be pulled is item C11, which is another land acquisition. This is the purchase of 430 Vista Village Drive. And Mr. Gronke, you wanted that one pulled, so why don't you go ahead with your question first, or do you want to report?
No, I'd rather just ask the questions and probably
Please go.
be able to clarify things, and I'll be
Please.
agreeable to it. We're going to purchase a property on Vista Way, and the city will own it. Is there a project you have in mind for this location?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Bill Rawlings, Director of Redevelopment and Housing, and with me tonight is Jeff Wyman. This is in the general area of our downtown, and it's across the street from Vista Village. And while there is no specific project, it is in a target area for redevelopment within the city.
So is the present commercial establishment there going to stay there even when we own the property?
The process that we follow when we acquire a piece of property is to look at the property to see if there is the ability for the existing property or some other use to occupy the space in a productive way. We look at safety issues and a lot of other issues to make a determination and a recommendation as to whether the existing use or another use could use it. That would be our next step if we were to go forward here, to do due diligence to make the determination as to whether it would be available for use by the existing or some other user.
But we're making a decision tonight to purchase that property, and potentially it could sit vacated.
Potentially it could for some period of time, yes.
Okay. I have a little problem with that. How much money does the redevelopment agency have right now for purchasing property?
Generally speaking, around $14 million.
And how much did the state take away from us this fiscal year?
The effective next May, it would be approximately $1.1 million.
And as far as I can see, the state still hasn't got their act in order, and they're scrambling right now to try to even figure out their fiscal budget for this year, because revenues aren't coming in as they projected. So I can anticipate that they'll take a similar amount of money from us next year. I'm making a projection. So for that reason, I don't tend to agree with this particular purchase for those two reasons, that it could sit vacated for quite a while, and we do have some vacated properties already, and I don't think we need to add to that. And secondly, I think the state's going to take additional revenue from us unless maybe the League of Cities comes forward and tries to negotiate some kind of, again, to try to save us. And honestly, I think it's time to do South Santa Fe, and I'd rather save our monies for that. So.
Okay, are there any other comments from the council? Mr. Campbell.
Thank you. Mr. Rawlings, what interim uses could that be put to as you develop a larger project?
Well, as I said, we would go through a process to determine the possible uses and what the market would support. We believe that there may very well be uses that it can be put to. I don't have a specific business, or I can't answer the question more specifically than to say that, of course, our goal would be to generate revenue in any interim period if possible.
Okay, I was thinking you might have had some ideas of interim uses on it. The Vista Village Center has done very well, and as such has had an impact on property values. This property 4 years ago was worth less, and you could arguably say it has gone through a peak. I believe it's been valued at more. But I don't see in the commercial market the property is dropping really much more, and this seems to be a rather desirable area to see development in.
Yeah, one of the reasons we're bringing it forward tonight for your consideration is because we see this as an opportune time to purchase the property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any? Oh, Mr. Lopez?
With times the way they are, it is difficult to be spending money at this time. And I do appreciate Mr. Gronke's speaking about the South Santa Fe corridor, which is, I have a business there, and it would seem to, since we've been working on the South Santa Fe corridor for almost 30 years, when we bought redeveloped the city of Vista, and they still haven't done anything there, it would be wise, and I can understand Mr. Gronke speaking up for the Santa Fe corridor, which, with all right, I think it should be the top priority for the city of Vista. It is the window to this development here, and but we are working on that. But the opportunities come when, even though I prefer not to buy anything and prefer to stick to Santa Fe, the opportunities here, and I think the city should go with this opportunity to purchase this property, because it will never get, I don't believe it'll get any cheaper, and it's time. Thank you.
Okay, next would be Mrs. Ritter.
I think we need to look at the future and look for the future, and this is a place across from our redevelopment area that we need to acquire property, and I don't think it's going to get any cheaper. Looking for today, I'm looking down the road 10 years, and I think as things become available, that we need to acquire them. So I would be supporting this, and I would make the motion.
Okay, seeing there's no others wishing to speak, you've made a motion to adopt staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
And there's a second to that. Any further discussion? Okay, then please cast your votes. That motion carries with Mr. Gronke voting no. That concludes the consent calendar. We'll now go to the items for discussion. The first item for discussion is the daytime curfew ordinance. And Mr. Johnson?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Patrick Johnson. I'm the Assistant City Manager, and with me is Wendy Romanoli, Management Analyst, and Wendy will be giving the report tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. There are several reasons why the majority of cities in San Diego County have adopted daytime curfew ordinances. Mainly, it is meant to deter students from being truant from school and to encourage parents to play a more active role in where their kids are during the day. And when kids are absent from school, it obviously hinders their education, but it also, when they're out unsupervised, it can make them a target for crime, or unfortunately, there are some daytime criminal activities that they participate in themselves. It can be a detriment to the community and also to some businesses that have kids hanging around and feel that they may be driving away legitimate customers. The issue has been considered by the City Council before, but now that the Sprinter line is established, the Sheriff's Department and the school district have expressed concern that word could spread among some of the other cities along the line, that not only in the Vista district but in other districts as well, that Vista is the only city on the line that doesn't have a daytime curfew ordinance, so it would be one you could go to during the day to avoid being cited for not being in school from 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. One of the services that the Sheriff's Department already provides is conducting 2 to 4 sweeps per year to enforce daytime curfews. Vista is not currently part of those sweeps since we don't have the underlying ordinance, but if it is adopted, future sweeps will include Vista in the directed details where juvenile diversion officers visit known gathering spots, take truants back to their prospective schools, and warn or cite the parents. Other action can be taken as needed, but the proposed recommendation will not affect the regular patrol or traffic duties of Vista deputies. By requiring parental notification, it is anticipated that fewer kids will miss school and hang out in the community, thereby reducing daytime crimes and any negative effect on the businesses. It should be noted that the ordinance only addresses youth loitering in public places, does not apply to kids in private homes that are homeschooled, going to and from legitimate medical appointments or school-approved jobs, or when a student is accompanied by a parent or guardian.
Okay. Are there any questions by council? Mr. Campbell?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Romanelli, does a public place constitute something like hanging around a theater or a shopping area, or does it have to be in a public place being a sidewalk? How do we define public place?
It could be either.
Could be either. So that's somebody standing on private property. If it's of a commercial nature, it would be considered a public place. Maybe the attorney wants to clarify on that.
I mean, an example of that might be around the Krikorian theaters near Starbucks, or in a shopping mall or a strip mall along North Santa Fe, somewhere like that.
Okay. Does the school district support this recommendation?
We have shared the staff report and the ordinance with several members in the administration of the school district, and they haven't expressed any concerns.
Will they help us by some forms of identification, so we'll have some possible, if we accidentally pick up someone that's not, it is okay to be out, but doesn't have identification, what do we do?
There will be close communication with members of the school district when the sweeps are conducted as to where the kids should be or where they need to be returned to, or whether or not they're out on a legitimate reason.
So they'll have an attendance-related officer available during these sweeps to help clarify misunderstandings?
Yeah.
Okay, because we certainly don't want to get a negative impression in the community. And is it possible to get an annual review of the results brought back to the council?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Gelder?
Just wanted to clarify also, as Mrs. Herrera is just here to speak on this item tonight, but we've been in close contact with the school district on, and this ordinance as it's written is something that the school district does definitely support, and being brought forward it's quite a bit different than the council has seen in prior years. And that is specifically one of the things that we asked for, was their assistance in providing some kind of identification for the students, because there are so many programs that are out there where the students may get out at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, and they may be working on some kind of work-study program or helping the grade schools on something. So we've asked them to provide some kind of identification, so when the deputy does stop them and says, you're 16 and you should be in school, and they'll say, well, I'm on my way to such and such a program. So they said that if this does pass, that they would definitely work diligently on that program.
Okay, next, Mr. Gronke.
we have some speakers on this before?
We do. We're going to have two speakers
Why don't
after.
we listen to speakers first, and then I'll make some comments.
Sure. We have two speakers, Carol Herrera and John Herrera. So first of all, we'll hear from Carol. Ladies first.
Honorable Mayor, council members, city manager, and all the rest of you who are here. As a member of the Vista Unified School District Board of Trustees, I want to thank you personally for your commitment to the daytime loitering curfew. And it's what I like about it, it's giving consideration to adopting a daytime curfew for minors caught in public places during school hours. And Vista Unified School District wants to make this a cooperative effort. We recognize that we have a responsibility the same as you as a city do in terms of people on streets where they don't need to be, and particularly our young people. So this curfew will enhance the entire community. It will enhance the community by three things. Number one, it will keep our kids in school. And that's what we really need. We have a very difficult time enforcing keeping students in school. We have SROs, school resource officers, but they can only do so much. Because at each of our high schools, we're dealing with about 3,200 students, large numbers of students who have the potential to be out on the street. So it will keep our students in school. It will reduce crimes committed by juveniles. And we know that the students who are out of school are usually the ones who are at most at risk. And so we want to keep those students in school and not give them the opportunity not to be there. So this will help us in that way also. And the third thing it does is it does protect people who are out in the community. There have been times when I've gone down to the Krikorian at lunchtime, at 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and have seen large numbers of students that I really believe belong in school. And so the people who are out there just enjoying our community, sometimes I think are at jeopardy with these students. Remember, again, these are the students that are most at risk, and they're out of school because they're not always the most successful. But they're not going to be successful if they're not in school. So it's a two-edged sword, and we really need to keep them in school. So any help that you can give us, and any help that we can give you, we are in this together as a community. And so I encourage the council that after discussion that you vote to support this daytime curfew, and I'm more than willing to answer any kinds of questions that you might have. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Herrera. John Herrera?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen. I speak as a former law enforcement officer with U.S. Customs Service, so my remarks cut both ways, because I have seen what laws can do for and against people inadvertently, as it were. I speak in support of this proposition. I think that the twofold objective that you set forth here is reducing crime in Vista by children or other youth who come from outside the community is admirable. I also think that we should protect our children. And on that particular score, I'm very concerned about this particular law, because when we have young minds that are, as Paul said, when I became a man, I put away my childish things, became a man. These kids haven't put away their childish things. They still behave in childish matters. Mr. Gronke can testify to that. I'm sure that he's seen some occasion, had some occasion to interact with on behalf of children who have crossed the line inadvertently, as have I. So the only thing that I ask, and I'm delighted that Captain Curran is here, because I am on his advisory committee, and I'll be bringing this up at the advisory committee. I'm just very concerned that when the law enforcement professional approaches young children, that he does indeed ascertain that the child is in possession or not in possession of a valid off-campus permit, and that they're not actively engaging in any criminal activity. Let's protect the children as well as law enforcement. Also, I think that the educational part of it is that there's a saying that ignorance is no excuse of the law. How many of you can recite the 10 Commandments? How many of you can tell us the 10 reasons why law enforcement has a right to stop us? None of you. And that's the same with children. In this community that is going to be most effective, going to be the most need of education, and what is the city, the school district, and the sheriff's department going to do to educate the parents and the children in schools that these ordinances coming down the pike, so that they will be pre-prepared, because forewarned is forearmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are the only two that submitted slips, but I know that we have a lot of representatives from our youth here tonight. And so if there's any of you that would care to speak on this, since this is something that you have a direct stake in, this is your opportunity if you'd like to step forward. Now, these are all the young people who never stray from school, so it doesn't matter to them. All right, well, thank you very much then. Mr. Gronke, it's your turn. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of students in the audience, but we all recognize that already. So I guess this message needs to get out if we pass this ordinance tonight. But I have a question to staff. Could you just give me kind of a scenario? Who's going to monitor this? If we pass this ordinance tonight, who's going to be responsible for its implementation?
The Sheriff's Department coordinates all the juvenile diversion officers from all of the different contract cities to do these 2 to 4 sweeps a year. There are roughly about 10 to 15 of them that would participate in each sweep.
Okay. And so a common occurrence would be someone would be found out of school and then they would be transported back to school?
Yes.
And they would be cited at that time?
Or their parents would be cited.
And what does a citation mean? Is it something that means they have to appear at court?
Yeah, that's correct. If they're cited, they will appear in court with their parent.
Okay. So on the first citation, there's a court appearance?
That's correct. With
multiple citations?
If they're cited the first time, they have to appear in court, and it's a fine of approximately $100. If they're caught again and cited, then it's an infraction on the parent, and it's a fine up to $250. The third time could be, depending on what the court says, a misdemeanor and a fine up to $1,000.
I thought I read recently that someplace in Oceanside a parent was taken to jail for not having their kids go to school?
That's correct. I should have stated that it could be $1,000 or up to 6 months in jail for the misdemeanor offense.
Is that built in our ordinance?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Oh, good. When I look on page 2 of this of the staff report, there's a pretty extensive list of exceptions to the rule. So all I have to say, I warned this council before about the Sprinter line and all these different cities. I think all the cities along the Sprinter line now have a daytime truancy ordinance. So
that's correct.
And so most of those kids are probably coming to our city, to our downtown. So I think we need to protect our downtown. I think we need to agree to approve this tonight, and I'd encourage my council members to do that.
Okay, Mr. Campbell?
Well, Mayor, I just want to express agreement in this, and I appreciate the Herrera's coming forward. My concern was what Mr. Herrera spoke to, and that is accidental misapplication of the rules or misunderstandings, which could exacerbate possible problems in the community over the time. That's why I think it's critical that the school district have available immediately by phone someone who can clarify the attendance requirement or what the issue might be, so we don't start having the deputies hauling kids around unnecessarily, for one thing, and everybody will understand what we're trying to accomplish and be able to deal with it immediately. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. I'd like to also encourage the council to go along with this. With the spinner, I agree with Mr. Gronke. With the spinner, I noticed there's a lot of students on there, and it'd be it would not be a good thing for them to actually go from city to city creating problems. They need to be in school, and for you young folks, the better the education, the better the job in the future, and the future is better education, because if you don't have the education, you don't have a good job. So I'm encouraging this tonight. Thank you.
Okay, next, Mrs. Ritter.
Did I hear you say there are only 4 sweeps a year?
They plan 2 to 4. We can do other activities if it's warranted, if we, hear of certain problems in certain locations or whatnot, but that's what they operate under right now is 2 to 4 a year.
And can the regular sheriffs, if they see a problem, like at Krikorian, can they do something, or does that have to be a
Absolutely.
special truancy officer?
No, it can be a regular officer.
Regular sheriff
Yes.
can do that. Okay, well, in that case, then I support this, and I would make the motion.
Okay.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And that passes unanimously. Okay, next item on the agenda is for those that are here for D2, at the beginning of the meeting, we said that there would, this item is being pulled and would be considered in the month of November at a later time, and that there would be community meetings that would be held to get more further community input prior to that meeting. So we'll go on now to the public hearing that's scheduled. This is an appeal of Planning Commission 3-181 Alta Vista Drive tentative parcel map.
Mayor, I need to recuse myself.
Okay, and Mr. Campbell needs to recuse himself.
Just for the students that are here, the law requires that if somebody has a financial situation with somebody that's coming before city council of a value of $500 or more, then that council member needs to recuse himself, which means leave the room and not participate in the discussion. So with that, I wish to avoid any problem, and I will be leaving.
Okay. Mr. John Conley, our Community Development Director, will bless us with the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The project before you this evening is an appeal of a tentative parcel map on Alta Vista Drive, planning case 3-181. The project site is located off of both Alta Vista Drive and Eucalyptus Avenue in the northeastern part of the city, as shown on the slide. Consists of 2 legal lots, one at 1847 Alta Vista Drive and one at 1244 Eucalyptus Avenue. The project proposes a tentative parcel map in the R1 zone, which is a minimum 10,000 square foot lot size. Proposes to create 4 residential lots out of 2 existing lots, which would provide 2 new lots for 2 new dwelling units. And as I noted before, 2 of the proposed lots are already developed. And this project is exempt from environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act. The original application was submitted to create 3 parcels on the property at 1847 Alta Vista Drive, and due to insufficient size of the subject property to obtain 3 lots, the parcel at 1244 Eucalyptus Avenue was made part of the application. So the applicant is proposing to take part of the property at 1244 Eucalyptus Avenue, approximately 300 square feet, and add it to the Alta Vista Drive property to accommodate the subdivision, and I'll show you that graphically with the map that's coming up. There are no other changes proposed to the Eucalyptus Avenue property at 1244 other than to obtain that 300 square feet that's necessary for the map. This shows the proposed tentative parcel map. The primary access to the 3 lots would come off of Alta Vista Drive. This shows the proposed configuration of the 3 lots, approximately where they would lie. As you can note, there's an existing house on the eastern side of the lot that's shown in a shaded form there. A portion of that structure would have to be demolished in order to accommodate the access road. The 300 square foot area that will be obtained from the property on Eucalyptus Avenue is shown in the green. And there is an access easement on an adjacent property that will be used to serve this property as well. It's 15-foot wide access easement that's shown in the blue. So both those areas are included in the map and proposed to serve the subdivision. All of the lots would be approximately 10,000 square feet in size, consistent with the zoning. As I noted, one of the portion of the existing residence would have to be modified to accommodate the access road, and there's an existing swimming pool that would have to be demolished in order to accommodate one of the lots. This project has gone through quite a bit of review. A notice of intended decision was mailed to the neighbors within 500 feet of the property in April for zoning administrator approval. We received several letters and correspondence on the project from the neighbors opposing the project. And after some additional research we did on the easement and some of the other issues that were raised, the application was approved by the zoning administrator in June of this year. It was subsequently appealed to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission had a public hearing in September and approved the project with a 4-2 vote, and it has since been appealed to the City Council. The project is generally consistent with the general plan and zoning. The general plan designation is medium-low density, which allows 4 dwelling units per acre. The project proposes approximately 2.4 dwelling units per acre as it's currently designed. The property is zoned R1, which allows a minimum net lot size of 10,000 square feet, and all of the proposed lots meet the 10,000 square foot minimum size. The subdivision design requirements that the city has in their development code was reviewed against the project. The lot dimensions are all consistent with the city's design standards. It should be noted that the access requirements were modified by the planning department in this application, and I'll discuss that in a minute. The paved access to the property is 24 feet and does meet the fire department's requirements, but the access easement width is slightly varied. The emergency service and fire department conditions have been met with the paved access that's provided and the cul-de-sac that's provided, as well as a fire hydrant at the end of the cul-de-sac. And there is adequate utility service and facilities provided to the site, including water, sewer, and electrical. The drainage design would detain increased stormwater runoff from the development with a detention basin that's proposed down in the corner of the project, which I can cover on the map. To address the access issue, the private easement that serves the subdivision is 30 feet wide, which includes a 15-foot panhandle on the 15-foot easement on the adjacent property, and the applicant proposes a 25-foot wide paved driveway to serve the site. The development code requirements for a private street in this zone requires a 35-foot easement with a 24-foot wide paved driveway. The application meets the paved driveway width but does not meet the 35-foot easement width. The 5-foot easement width is the additional 5 feet beyond the 30 that's required by our code is typically required to accommodate utilities such as sewer and water to be placed outside the easement or the road right-of-way. This is typically done for private developments, and staff provided some discretion on this project to not meet that standard because the utilities are in place under the road, and any additional utilities that would be needed to serve the project would be accommodated under the private street. So we did provide a modified standard for this applicant. And it's noted that the development code allows a deviation from that standard where the changes would not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare, and we made that finding at the staff level when we reviewed the project for the zoning administrator approval. This shows our private street standard, just for your reference, noted as the 35-foot wide street and utility easement at the top of the drawing with a 24-foot wide paved street section. And as I noted, they would meet the paved street section but not the utility easement width. And the staff recommendation is to adopt the resolution approving the intended parcel map for a 4-lot single-family residential subdivision. And that completes my staff presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Before we hear from the audience and those who have requested to speak, are there any questions or clarifications needed by the City Council? Mr. Lopez?
Yes. I noticed that the length of the driveway coming all the way down, how far is that, John, from, what is it, Alta Vista Drive down to the cul-de-sac? Now, will that road, I want to know if that road will be redone completely or what? What are we doing there?
The road that exists there today would have to be repaved and widened in order to accommodate the subdivision. And in judging by the map here, I'm just trying to get an estimate of the width. Looks to be about approximately 200 feet.
200 feet. Now, will that require, is that called rule, or what is that?
Yes, it's designated a private street within a rural area or semi-rural area, and per our code, it allows a lesser width designation in a rural area.
And what is it? What's our requirement when it comes to curb or rolled, or what? What are we doing there?
This is the designation here. So it allows a rolled curb
Kind
with
of a rolled curb, huh?
24-foot wide paved street. That's correct.
Okay. So you have to do both sides all the way down, coming down from Alta Vista.
This specific project is actually going to have a rolled curb on one side, and the other side would be a swale, a vegetated swale that would be used to accommodate the stormwater that's flowing down the driveway.
So the swell will be on which side? If you're coming down, which side is the swell on?
I'm sorry, that would be on the north side here, so at the top of the map.
That would be the north side where all that little jaggedy looking stuff is?
That's correct.
Okay, that's where the swell is. The south side would be the rolled?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. Mr. Grunke.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of questions. When it went before the planning commissions, were there any alterations to the original plan?
No, there were no alterations made by the Planning Commission.
And you said there's an exception we can make to the easement if there's no public health issues involved. Is that something just staff does, or is that something that has to be, we have to make that finding?
The discretion is provided to the approving body, so the staff made that discretion at the zoning administrator level and at the Planning Commission level, but it's at your discretion now.
Okay. One last question, and I don't know if you can answer this one. At the end of this cul-de-sac, there's people that live along that cul-de-sac. When they purchase their homes, is it revealed to them by a realtor there's a potential for development at the end of their cul-de-sac, or is it something they just understand that it's going to happen?
That is not understood by any homeowner, in my opinion. That's something that's subject to a lot of speculation, depending on the ability of the owner to subdivide, the size of the lot, et cetera. So it's not a disclosure that's required by any law.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lopez?
No, I forgot to turn mine off.
Okay. Mrs. Ritter?
I just have a quick question. So could a fire truck get down there and turn around if they needed to? Is there?
The design is that's proposed would accommodate a 40-foot radius cul-de-sac at the end of the private road, so the fire department is satisfied with the design of the subdivision.
Around in a 40-foot radius?
That's the minimum requirement for a residential subdivision.
Okay. If there are no further questions or clarifications from the council, the public hearing is now open, and we'll ask the first person to speak would be the person representing the applicant, and that would be David Bauer. Okay, that's fine. Next would be Charles Salter.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council. My name is Charles Salter. My wife and I have property at 1839 Alta Vista Drive. We purchased this in 1964 and have been residents there ever since. We have seen the 1800 block of Alta Vista Drive grow and develop. When we purchased, it was essentially avocado groves. We have seen individual homes being purchased and erected, and the property developed by owners in, I think I can say without fear of contradiction, they're half acres or larger. The proposal would, in fact, very definitely change the character of the 1800 block of Alta Vista Drive. And notwithstanding staff's report, there are several serious legal issues which were raised in the original objections, the appeal to the Planning Commission, and the appeal to this court. Copies of those documents were sent to each one of the City Council members. The issues remain to this day. The applicant has no legal access to Alta Vista Drive other than for one single family dwelling. He does not have legal access for 2, 3, 4, or any more. There will be, in fact, an overburdening of the easement across the property at 1849 Alta Vista Drive. That's against long-standing California law. You do have a surface water runoff problem because the proposal that was made by the company addressed only one of the two parcels of land that are involved. And finally, because this will be a taking of private property for a so-called private street, which in truth and in fact is a public street, because the City of Vista Fire Department and now the City of Vista requires that it be turned into a new street with a new name, new house numbers, the whole business. If the City Council has any questions regarding the objections that have been filed and all of the laws and the cases cited, we strongly urge that you consider engaging the services of an independent attorney. Let the attorney read the documentation that has been submitted to you. Let that attorney give you advice, and then make your decision. And while these issues remain, there is a very simple solution. Each one of you were sent a copy of the appeal, and it has a multicolored enlarged map of the project. The yellow will indicate that the applicant has direct access to Eucalyptus Avenue from his own property. They have no need to use Alta Vista Drive. There is no easement involved. There will be no overburdening of an easement. There will be no new street. There will be no inverse condemnation. There will be no violation of long-standing California law. There will still be the surface water issue. Presumably a competent engineer can address that. But by using Eucalyptus Avenue as his point of access, the legal issues for the applicant will disappear. Please think about that before you make a decision.
Thank you, Mr. Salter. Next would be Brad Sherrill.
Thank you, council members, for hearing my case. I oppose the project. My name is Brad Sherrill. I live at 1248 Eucalyptus Avenue, and I have good news. I'll be taking less than 3 minutes. So anyway, my main objection is that as the property originally stood, it was not large enough to put 2 additional units in. So the owner went around to all the neighbors. He came to me asking for a property. No way, no way. Couldn't find anybody to sell him the land until he found somebody who would sell out for, I don't know how much money. That would be interesting to know. Anyway, the property as it originally stood, it did not fit, the criteria for jamming 2 additional houses in there. But by getting a little bit more land and changing property lines and boundaries and easements, whatever it is, then it barely met the requirement to put 2 additional houses in, which would have a definite negative impact over the whole neighborhood because of the way our area up there is set up with larger lots and a little less dense housing. So I oppose the project. I think it would have a negative impact having 2 additional properties on that spot. 1 would be fine. I actually don't have a problem with that, but by changing property lines in order to get jam those 2 extra houses in just seems like it's not right. I think the City of Vista would be drastically changed if everybody started looking around for extra land to meet the requirements to build additional houses. Everybody could just combine their properties and start putting in houses where they could fit them by the legal requirements. So I oppose this project, and thank you for hearing my concerns.
Thank you. Next would be Carol Adams.
I'm Carol Adams, and I live at 486 Hillway Drive. It's on the cul-de-sac. If you'll look at the map that you have in front of you, in the upper left corner, I'm in the middle house. What that map doesn't show is the hillsides. That property is very steep behind us, and I don't see how they can even put a house on. But what my major concern is the drainage system that they have proposed, which is a 25 by 30-foot cesspool, 9 feet deep, filled with rocks, which will, the drainage along the easement will empty into that. That drainage basin borders our property, which we border both the Pimentel and the lake properties. It's inches from my house. In the past, and we've lived there 10 years, we've had some flooding problems into our backyard. When that drainage basin fills up, it will empty into my house, my backyard. Between the house that's on the right and our house, there's about a 10 or 12-foot block wall. That can be undermined, and then the Salvador property will end up in my backyard. I look at health problems, that drainage basin, who's going to maintain it? I believe that the owner will have to, whoever the owner will be, because those 2 lots will probably be sold off. We're looking at mosquito problem, and our property does not drain. I sent you all a letter and asked that there be percolation tests run before this was approved, and to look at the hillside. But we'd appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very much. Next would be Beth, is it Martino?
Hi, thank you for hearing so many of us tonight. My name is Beth Martino, and I and my husband, we live on 478 Hillway, and we're also in that cul-de-sac. In fact, our pool is up in the middle up there. I have a couple of concerns that I want to really address. The first one being, I'm not sure if they've already handled the permits and everything, but a lot of property in this area has already been moved. I mean, we've been hearing, I don't know if it's cats coming in, caterpillars coming in. It's already been moved quite extensively. That's one issue. We are both very much concerned about the drainage. I mean, that is a slope. When we had the 2004 rains, all of our homes then in that cul-de-sac are built into the hill, and it went into the crawl spaces. Went into my home. We had to redo the drainage. Went into our neighbor's home. Their house was flooded in their crawl space. And I'm not sure about the Salvador's, but I know that is one concern. If we have a heavy rain again, and with the drainage that has already been addressed, I think that is a primary area we need to really consider to make sure that does not become a potential problem, because it might not be something that even appears in 2 years. When in Oceanside, when you had the Arroyo properties, all that land was just drenched, and homes were destroyed and demolished and moved down the slope, and we're in the same kind of topography where it is settled that way. The other thing, I also am a realtor, so to address your question, we were not notified of any potential building. In fact, when we first purchased the home, we purchased it in November of 2004, and the property was zoned not to be able to have any other housing built behind us, and we were really pleased with that. I am, as a realtor who's been in the market for about 2 years, I'm also a teacher, because realty, the state it is not where you want to be full-time right now. Just looking at the property values, I pulled up 28 homes in the Alta Vista, Beaumont, and Eucalyptus area. 3 of them this past year have sold where the price has gone down in value, over $100,000. Market time varies from 130 days to 209 days. So even if you had this new property, a question that I would ask you to consider is, how long is the new housing going to be on the market? Houses are not selling that quickly, so now you're going to have more additional homes coming in to be considered and to be obviously sold. What is that market time if your intent is to allow those homes to come on, and then you have taxes coming in? If they're vacant, that's not going to be available. It may lead to the option of having more vandalism. Just questions to consider that I would like to have considered before you finally make your decision. And that's pretty much what I want to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is Doris Schneider. Doris Schneider?
Excuse me. My name is Doris Schneider, and I live at 1849 Alta Vista Drive. That is an address on that easement that's been in question. I'd like for you to understand, first of all, that the question coming between these two groups is not a feud between neighbors. It's not a fuss between neighbors. I do not know the people who own the lake property. I've never met them. They're out-of-town owners. There's no interaction between the Schneiders and the Lakes at all. But this is an expression of my dismay that somehow the city of Vista, I guess in 1969, changed the zoning from half acre to 10,000 square feet minimum, and we were not notified. We've lived there 43 years. I think we would have known. This is an objection to the lot split into 10,000 square foot lots, inserting high density into the center of single-family homes on large half-acre lots. It just doesn't fit. Neighbors on all sides of this project object. 28 to 30 people, rational people, have signed objections, and you've got those in your files. We've asked you to stop the subdivision. Many of those people are present, and a lot of them plan to speak this evening. The builder and the energy behind this subdivision is actually Mrs. Lake's father, Mike Radakovich. He's also known as M&M Builders, and he's operating under the radar. His name is not on any of the maps or the plans. But the Schneider's first encounter with him was in '04 when he came to acquire the property and took out the corner marker for our property line. It was a pipe that had been in the ground over 40 years. Next, he asked us for some land so that he could adjust his drainage. We refused. Then he went to other neighbors, as has previously been mentioned. Finally, he found someone. He found a partner for that extra property, and that's Javier Pimental at 1244 Eucalyptus. About the subject of developing the property, when Mike came and took over, it was already developed. There was a home there with a pool and a grove, so it isn't keeping a man from developing his land. It was developed. I ask you if you can stop manipulation of the law. Can you stop the bending of the rules? Can you stop the adjustment of lot lines to accommodate a builder who wants to just stuff two small lots in the center of residences on half acre? Please?
Thank you. Mr. Larry Schneider?
Mr. Mayor, council members, city manager, and department heads. Thank you for hearing this tonight. May I have extra time since I'm the applicant, Mr. Mayor? I'd like to have it 3 extra minutes.
Is he the applicant? You're not the applicant.
Well, I'm the on 1849. I'm the one that's getting the brunt of all this stuff.
No, you're limited to 3 minutes, sir. You're the appellant, is what you're trying to say?
Yes, I am.
Does the council wish to give this gentleman additional time?
I don't mind. Sure.
Okay, an additional minute?
Thank you very much. I'm Larry Schneider. I've been on this property 43 years, and we've had half-acre zoning all this time, and we've had a beautiful neighborhood. Last couple of months, we have sent you letters of our findings and hearings and our planning and so forth, and in that you will find 30 of our neighbors have signed in opposition to this. 30 voters in this area all around this property are saying no to this. The thing that set me off the most was the fire department street. I have been fighting this all along. All of a sudden they come in and they say, we're 4 houses and we're going to build some more, we want a street. And so I'm up and down Alta Vista Drive all the time driving around. You know, I have not found a fire department street in town. Are we going to be the first guinea pig on this thing? I don't like it. I have a flag lot all the way up to Alta Vista Drive, 15 feet. And if they take this property from me, I consider it inverse condemnation, and I'll pursue that. It will lower my value of my home, $100,000, because I will no longer have Alta Vista Drive. I might have Wuthering Heights or something, I don't know. But they can name the street whatever they want to. I do not approve that 15 feet of my property can be used for this easement, and I want to make that clear. I do not approve of that. Now, I don't know where the law is on that. I'm told that I'm on my that. And some time ago, I went to do a lot split in Vista. I went to one of the top engineers in town, and I looked at a piece of property, and it so happened it had 30 feet easement. And he told me, forget it. There's no way you can get this without a 35-foot easement. So I dropped the thing completely. And here I come to find out we have a 30-foot easement that's been temporarily approved by Vista City, and I don't know why. And I would like to say, for our lives, comfort and safety, I wish you would enforce the 35-foot limit on this property. Water rationing is in effect this month. I don't know whether you got your water bills. You say water rationing is on, water at certain times, and here you're allowing 2 more homes. I further ask you to decline this subdivision on another issue. That issue is, when it first came out, it was 0.91 acres for 3 houses. And then he added 300 feet for Mr. Pimentel, and then all of a sudden it was 1.66 acres for 4 houses. And so that would mean that there's 1 existing house on the first lot, but there are 2 existing houses on the second lot, which nobody knows about, but it's true. There's 2 living dwellings, and they're using them, and 2 new ones that make 5 houses. So I ask you to decline this whole thing, because it's invalid as far as I'm concerned. The second lot does have an easement to Eucalyptus Drive, which Mr. Salter pointed out. I also ask you to further decline this because of an invalid swamp report, a water report. I read this report some time ago and I was amazed, because it only covered 0.91 acres, which was the first lot that they were working on. They added the 300 feet, but never changed the water report. They were still saying that. So I went to the city and I said, what is about this? Oh, they said, our engineer said it's okay. So to me, when you have a subdivision of 1.66 acres, the water report should cover the whole thing. There's a neighbor to Mr. Pimentel who has a sump pump in his backyard when it rains to get the water out before it runs into his house. I went to see that, and I was just amazed that this could go on. So I'm asking you that something be done about this. In the 70s and 80s, some of you were here, I remember, that we had, in the late 70s and the early 80s, we had heavy rains. I mean, the water running down my easement was tremendous for, like a day or 2 or whatever it happened to be. Now, on Alta Vista Drive, the topo is such that when the rain comes from downtown, from this area up to the hill, it drops more rain than it does down here. So when you look at rain reports, which I did for the last 50 years in Vista, it doesn't report the actual rain that happens on Alta Vista Drive. Now, we had 3 houses in those days when these people had their problems with their backyards getting flooded. Now we're going to have 5 houses with all the asphalt, all the the new houses, all the new roofs. The water's going to go run down in that corner. That sump's going to be full in 5 hours. I really feel that this swamp report is just a legal document. It doesn't really cover the things. I would ask you to please go talk to these people and have them show you what happens, because what the report will say is, oh, this will take care of all these problems. It does not take care of these problems. Let me just assure you that.
Sir, could you please summarize?
I would ask you to put a $250,000 bond on the developer to solve these problems for future and for the city liability. I thank you for putting the fire hydrant on the street. That's something new that's just happened. Thank you. Please deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kathy Secan.
Thank you once again for listening to our concerns tonight. I'm opposing the development. I live across the street at 1858 Alta Vista Drive, where I've lived for 30 years. My concerns are quality of life issues. I moved down here 30 years ago from Hermosa Beach. I lived on a 25-foot wide lot. I know what high density is. I paid a premium price for my property 30 years ago so that I could have some elbow room. I love my home. I love my neighborhood. I've been very distressed about what's been going on there. I appreciate at least one of you came out to look at the area and to see what we're talking about. I appreciate your time and energy for doing that. Just down the street 2 years ago, 2 new homes were built on Cypress. One of them now has a minimum of 6 cars and trucks parked in front of that house every night. Some nights 7 or 8. Now, if that happens with this proposal with 5 homes and 6 cars each, we are going to have such a mess on Alta Vista Drive that it's going to be a nightmare. And we don't know that that's not going to happen. I'm also concerned, as mentioned before, about the water rationing. I may have to do away with my pool. I'm considering cutting down my trees. My gardener has said I should consider artificial turf in the back and take away my lawn. So there goes the quality of life that I have, that I moved down here for, and that I love so dearly. I think it's irresponsible for cities in this area to continue to allow more development and to draw upon our limited resources when we can't support the quality of life that we've enjoyed these years. It's breaking my heart to see this happen. I dearly, dearly oppose this proposal. I mean no offense to the people trying to make a buck. That's great. I would say do it someplace else, and please not in our neighborhood. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. It's affecting our lives. It's very important to us, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. The final speaker is Mr. David Bauer.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak here. Almost said Your Honor, I'm so used to being in court. Basically, I just want to address some of the things that were said, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. The legal access that was referred to, I think it was Mr. Salter, is already in place. There's an easement that doesn't belong to any of the parties that have spoken here today. It's an easement that belongs to everyone, and it's an easement that belongs to the lakes as well. And that's the easement that's been approved for use. The fact that it's going to have a 24-foot paved road on it, which is actually wider, I believe, than the actual Alta Vista Drive as it exists now, is going to allow for plenty of room for fire truck access. It already provides in the conditions that they have to have a cul-de-sac, which will provide for plenty of room for fire trucks to turn around. They are not
I've heard a couple different people threatening this inverse condemnation issue. There's simply no taking of anyone's property involved with regard to approval of this plan. In fact, the only taking that I could possibly see would be if this plan wasn't approved and my client was not allowed to develop his land as he legally has a right to do. With regard to, I think it was Ms. Adams who talked about her property on Hillway Drive being affected, these concerns and the concerns of others that were raised in objections with regard to water runoff resulted, I believe, in the city asking for and receiving 2 and I think 3 or more additional reports from engineers, including Ohm Engineering, Torrey Walker Engineering, and Vinci and Middleton Engineering, all coming to the same conclusion after very detailed analysis, and it addresses actually the issues that Mr. Schneider mentioned that were in a previous report that are now addressed in the more recent reports, that in fact the water runoff issue is going to be better now with the development than it was before. They're going to have a catch basin that is not there now. They're going to actually provide for the ability to take care of flood that hasn't happened here in 100 years. That's basically what they looked at, was going back how much of a bad flooding have we had or could possibly happen in 100 years. That's the criteria that they used. Other than that, I just want to summarize by saying that I understand neighbors want to be don't want change to happen in their neighborhood. Heavens, where would we be if neighbors over the past? If I'm sure when Mr. and Mrs. Schneider wanted to build their house 40 years ago, the neighbors probably didn't like it back then that they were going to build more homes. This is just the way the city has decided that a 10,000 square foot lot is a sufficient size. They're only asking for that. They're not asking for variances. They're not asking for anything other than what they're entitled to under the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes all those who have registered to speak. We'll take just about a 5-minute break, and then we'll continue.
I'd like the attorney to speak on that part where I believe it was Mr. Salter spoke about the the letter that he sent us.
Are you referring to his concerns over the easement and the scope of the easement?
Yes.
I believe you'll find Mr. Stone's letter back to him in there. It's fundamentally will have to be worked out if the disagreement were to continue and the council were to approve the subdivision. If they believe that that is not consistent with the easement, then it's a civil matter between them and the individuals who would be proposing to build the subdivision. Frankly, I think Mr. Stone's letter is fairly clear in looking at the original deed and the fact that it speaks of multiple owners and parts and portions of the property. To me, strongly suggests it was anticipated that it would be subdivided at some point. But ultimately, that's a court could make that decision. It's between the two parties.
When I look at this subdivision, what I see here, where there was a mistake made years ago, was that because I'm well aware of how easements work, what I find that was, years ago when the easement was granted, it was granted for one home. And little did people realize, or whoever granted the easement probably did not realize that down the road it could be subdivided. So as a gentleman's word, that when he gives his word on a particular thing, and then down the road it's unfortunate that someone else bought that property, and that gentleman's word was not followed through. That bothers me. But it should have been in writing that the property should have had only one home. But when I listened to all the folks here tonight, let's start off with Alta Vista. Alta Vista, I've lived here all my life, and over the years, Alta Vista has been quite a name in our community. To say that the values would go down because you're changing Alta Vista, it could. How much? I don't know. The drainage problem there that I see, I still cannot see where, on this map that we have, John, Mr. Conley, excuse me, you have these little dark areas. That's where the drainage is coming, on this big one here?
That's correct.
Now, you have two different areas for drainage, correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's shown by the shaded notes on the map.
When they speak about the 100-year flood, what I heard is that on South Santa Fe, when the channel was put in, it was put in for the 100-year flood. All of a sudden, years go by, and it's no longer a 100-year flood channel. Is that correct, John, on the Santa Fe corridor?
The Santa Fe
It's not
corridor
sufficient.
is designed a 50-year, I believe, storm.
50 years, okay. So when you put in when you say it's designed for a 100-year or 50-year, on Santa Fe, it didn't work. So here it might not work either. So I see where this property is, I'm trying to evaluate all the different things that people have talked here tonight and trying to determine the decision on this. And they have valid things that I see, but I don't think they really have the right on the driveway simply because it was done years ago. But when you look at this property, this whole area, they're all half acres and more, bigger. And all of a sudden you're going to drop it down to 10,000. When you go from county to city, you have a buffer there, which the properties, you can't go less than 1 acre, you can't go half acre. But yet, when you come here, when you see half-acre lots, 3/4 acre lots, 1 acre lots, and then you go down to 10,000 square foot lots in a property that is somewhat hilly, it is, to me, a problem. It is a problem because here, the way of life that people have had here for many years, and all of a sudden you're going to put in 10,000 square foot lots in a area that for years it has been half acre or better. I'm a believer in developing higher density, but when I believe in developing higher density down by the corridor, that's higher density. But when you come up to residential areas like this, and you try and cram 10,000 square foot, yes, our city ordinance says you can do that. But not all ordinance and not all of these things were looked at when we developed these ordinance. So because you developed an ordinance in the community, now you've changed the way of life for people in certain areas. And it might be accommodating for areas that can handle that, but there's also, it won't accommodate areas that won't handle this, is the way I look at it. Now, yes, he has the right to put in 10,000 square foot homes. Yes, I believe in development. But I do not believe that when our ordinance and our laws say 35 foot, we then change that to accommodate when if someone else might have wanted to do it, it depends on who it is, they might not give him that right. But yet you're doing that here. You're allowing. Did that make sense to you? So, okay, so what I'm saying is that if our ordinance says 35 feet, then it's got to be 35 feet. And why should we change today? So, I will tonight. I just can't see this broken up into 10,000 square foot lots. I just can't see this today.
Thank you, Mayor. The speakers brought up a couple of questions I think I need answered. First of all, one speaker talked about direct access from eucalyptus for some of the parcels. It just wasn't designed for that, or the paths won't work that way?
You'll note on the aerial photo in front of you that the access easement or the access driveway for the property at 1244 Eucalyptus has a house that sits right adjacent to the driveway. Our development code requires a 10-foot setback from a private road easement, so if they were going to serve the subdivision through that area, that house would have to be basically cut in half in order to accommodate that access, so it was not determined to be feasible.
Okay, and one of the speakers talked about additional property on there that we're not aware of, an additional house?
There is a second unit on the property at 1244 Eucalyptus. A complaint was filed after the Planning Commission hearing that they had an illegal second unit. We've investigated, and determined that the unit is legal. However, there's an illegal addition to that unit, which we're currently in the process of handling through code enforcement action.
Okay. So we are aware of it. Another speaker talked about when we changed the 0.9 acres, 3 houses, to 1.6 acre, 4 houses, and when you got the additional footage, that there wasn't some more water study redone. It was required that they have additional water study?
The stormwater and hydrology reports were revised before the Planning Commission hearing for both properties, and those are part of the record.
Okay, so the retention basins and so forth that are put in place will take care of that.
All of the reports address the additional 300 square feet of the adjacent property at this time.
Okay, okay. How about coming back to that easement, they're required to have a 35-foot easement, is that right?
The code requires a 35-foot easement, that's correct.
And presently it's 30-foot.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Ritter.
Be on here. There. Just reading this, on the report it said here, development code allows deviation from private street standards where such changes would not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. So looking at that, and I actually drove out there today and looked at that site, and it looked like they graded it. It looked like it was kind of graded off a little bit to me, but it just seems to me that I drove back the easement and back in there, and it seems like increasing the traffic on there would adversely affect that road, would making it a public street, it would affect the increasing the density and things, making that a public street would affect when it says their welfare or their safety. I would think that wasn't a good thing. And so I saw another thing in here where it says no special circumstances exist to warrant a deviation from the private street standards. And so I was looking for a special circumstance, and I don't find one. So I'm going to. Do you want me to?
No, there's others.
Okay, go. Then I'm done.
Okay, Mr. Piper?
Oh.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I thought it might be helpful, since this has come up a couple of times, to indicate what the Vista Municipal Code provides in this area specifically. It says, where special circumstances exist, deviations from the standards may be approved by the city engineer, provided that the changes do not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. So, although Councilman Lopez referred to the right to develop the property, actually that right only ripens if special circumstances exist and it does not adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare, and that therefore is one of the findings that you either can or decide you cannot make this evening.
Probably in more ways than one. I look at the map and I see that this is symptomatic of what we're having to deal with all over this whole central core of Vista. Unfortunately, Mr. Hossladen and his avocado groves and his lanes to the avocado groves have left us a mishmash of roads and houses that are developed on easements, and it just seems to get worse and worse. And I think we're perpetuating that rather than trying to solve that by the development of this particular property. Number one, although the fire department requires that to have a name on that particular easement, that doesn't make it a public street, does it?
No, it would still be a private street, Mayor.
Private street. And so that even in that case, it's still a private street. I just think that rather than perpetuate this, I think we need to just basically say no and not approve it. Are there any other comments or questions from the council? If not, please cast your vote. Oh, wait, wait just a second. Mr. Lopez. I got a little ahead of myself. I'm sorry, Mr. Lopez. No, we have, is there a motion that a member of the council would like to make? Be my guest.
mic. Okay, we'll try that. Okay, so I will close the public hearing and not, how do I say that? Not adopt.
Adopt a resolution.
Not adopt the resolution.
No. There is, we had two resolutions there, and this is under Exhibit 5. So this is you would adopt a resolution, or we would adopt a resolution of the City Council of the Chartered City of Vista, California, denying tentative parcel map to split 2 residential lots into 4 lots in the R1 zone at 1847 Alta Vista Drive and 1244 Eucalyptus Avenue. That's the name of it. Okay. Do I have
I'll second that.
We have a second. We have a motion, a second. Are there any more comments before we call for a vote? Please cast your votes. Okay, that is denied 4-0 with Mr. Campbell unable to vote on this. That concludes the items that we have on the agenda this evening. We will go to the remarks from our staff and from various council members. If someone could ask Mr. Campbell to come back in for the, Mr. Conley, as you go out there, could you suggest to Mr. Campbell that he come in? Mr. Piper, do you have any comments? Thank you. Mrs. Gelder.
No, Mayor, I have no comments. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lopez, do you have any comments? Okay, Frank. Mr. Campbell?
Before I forget it, I would like to share that I went to a symposium put on by UCLA. It's an annual event that they pick out a major topic, and this was transportation and climate, dealing with AB 32 and 375 as well, and the impacts that would have on California cities. They brought in experts in transit from Toronto, from Switzerland, Zurich, in fact, and then also Latin America. And the conclusion of the 100 people in this symposium, and incredibly good speakers, was that we can't build our way out of congestion. If we add a lane, then that will fill up immediately, and if we get people off onto transit, what lanes are there will also fill up in short order, because people say, there's an opportunity to get on the freeway again. But the bottom line is that Toronto gets up to an 80% recovery on its public transit, which is remarkable, because in the United States 20 to 25% is considered good. But there's ways to do it, and it'd be difficult for San Diego County considering the financial restraints we have. But I think if we work on it, we can get more people into public transit. Some of the lateral issues that I think are worth noting is that in Denmark, if you buy a car, there's 160% sales tax. 160% sales tax. And that in all the European countries, the cost for fuel is probably the same as it is here as the base cost, but then they add on taxes and fees, which go to fixing of roads and improving roads. And also in some of the countries, there's no parking garages in their homes, and parking downtown is unaffordable. If you want to drive into downtown London, it's $15 a day. So there's a lot of things that are in play that we don't have here, and we should feel very fortunate for it. But over time, I'm sure with increased costs, we'll be considering options. It's a very interesting symposium.
Mr. or Mrs. Ritter, I'm sorry.
Oh, I do have something. This weekend, on Sunday, I actually worked with North Coast Church, and it was our weekend of service. And Saturday and Sunday, we did projects all over Oceanside, San Marcos, Vista, Escondido, and I worked at the chapels out at Camp Pendleton, and we painted and cleaned and did a community garden and rototilled and did all sorts of landscaping and cleaning windows and went in the children's area and cleaned that all up. But just out of curiosity, or not curiosity, but I just would like to tell you just a little bit about it. We had, because I have the statistics here, we had 5,000 volunteers. We did 139 projects at 70 different sites, and all of them were in Vista, Carlsbad, Fallbrook, San Marcos, Oceanside, and on Camp Pendleton. We did, on the City of Vista projects, we had 400 volunteers. We did 13 projects at 11 sites, and they were, the City of Vista projects were Brengle Terrace Park, Buena Vista Park, South Buena Vista Park, the Vista Traveling Team, Citywide, Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, the Wave Water Park, Fire Station Number 2, and 2 homes in the 2008 Bisson's Rock neighborhood. They went in there and finished those. So, and we did, masonry work and just all sorts of different things. So it was like another Bisson's Rock, only done by North Coast Church. So I just would like to give them kudos on doing that. They actually don't have any church service. We shut the church down for that whole weekend and go out and do projects in the community. So that's just...
But we'd like to compliment them on their efforts. Community, for all these communities, that's really a neat thing for them to do.
The council will have a proclamation on November 18th to deliver to them for that.
Outstanding.
Okay, Mr. Gronke, do you have anything?
Yeah, one last thing, Mayor. We're coming up on the cold season, and I want to thank the staff and code enforcement for being vigilant and catching these people that convert their garages over. I continue to read as the years go by about young people that perish with these space heaters in these illegal garage conversions. I know I've talked to teachers in the city and firefighters in the city, and I know it's happening out there, and anything that we can do to find them and to shut them down is a good thing for the health of our young people.
Thank you. I'd just like to mention, this last week I was back in Branson, Missouri, and I mentioned to the council that I saw gasoline for $1.99 a gallon, so that was inviting, although I wasn't driving. The other thing I saw, though, is that in Branson they have sales tax of 11-12%.
Really?
And it depended on the part of town that they were in or the development that was in that part of town. Some parts of town, they had a brand-new place called Branson Landing, which was a mixed-use project that had both residential and commercial. And in that particular one, I think the sales tax was about 10 or 11% to pay for the improvements in that particular project. So 8 1/4 doesn't look all that bad anymore. Okay, very good. Thank you all for your attendance this evening and for your doing. And we're done tonight.
Happy